My muffins! Today we're going to take a quick look at how I replicate analog tape processing on the low end of my tracks. Analog tape comes in different varieties and each adds a different vibe, specifically on the low end. I've replicated a bunch of the common EQ curves that you can find on tape machines. I'm including all of the presets and an Ableton device for download, but let's build one of these together before I show you the device. Here's what the beat sounds like before we add the processing. Let's start building one together. I'll be using Fab Filter Pro Q3 for this. I'll create a high-pass filter and bring the frequency to around 27 Hz. I like this curve. It's steep, but nowhere near a brick wall. Next, let's add a bump right around where we see the curve. I'll create a bell curve, and let's bring the frequency to around 36 Hz. I want the bump to start right on the crest of the high-pass curve. Let's bring the gain up now around 3 dB. Now this gives us some heat right where the sub-frequencies begin to become audible. I'll bring the Q a little bit wider, let's say around 0.6. Now I want to add something that you wouldn't get from analog tape. I want to add some dynamic EQ to add a little punch. I'll create a low shelf band. I'll bring the frequency to around 150 Hz so we can affect most of the bass frequencies. I'll turn on the dynamics by selecting Make Dynamic in this drop-down menu. And if I play it, you can see the dynamic control is catching the kick drum and getting rid of the punch. As we drag it down, we will lose punch, and if we bring it up, we will be adding some punch back in. I like to add around a dB or so of dynamics in here to help the kick come through. This is definitely one of my favorite EQ curves. What I did was replicate 6 of my favorite tape emulation EQ curves and saved the presets, which will work in any DAW. Those are available in the description below. I also created a free device for Ableton users that's super dope. I'll delete the Fab Filter and bring in the Slap Doctor device. You can see all these presets here on the left, which are all using different curve types. Let's open it up so we can see what's going on inside. I'll play it using the Thump 1 preset. The first knob, Slap Curve Control, is going to be a knob where you can scroll through all of the different EQ curves. Next is the Roll knob, which lets you choose where you want the bass to roll off. As the high-pass filter moves, the bell curve and the dynamic low shelf will move along with it. Check it out. So this is extremely helpful if you're mixing a song with a muddy low end. The punch knob is going to be adding more or less dynamics to the low shelf. So you can either have a lot or no dynamic processing. The slap knob is controlling the dry-wet, which will either increase the bump and dynamics or remove them altogether depending on where you leave it. I'll close this up and let's listen to a few of these different presets. The up and down curves are super interesting, so let's take a quick look. You can see we get a bump and a cut, which sound really good on some mixes. I'll quickly finish showing you guys the rest of the knobs. Next is the tilt knob, which is routed to a Fab Filter Pro Q3 at the end of the chain that has a tilt EQ with dynamics. As you tilt it right or left, you are going to get a dynamic boost to either side of the frequency spectrum. Next is a soft clip control, which adds soft clipping at the end of the chain. It's off if turned all the way to the left. You have full gain control here. And lastly, you have control of the auto gain. I have all of the EQs preset with auto gain on because it sounds much better with the way that I gain stage. If you don't want to use auto gain, just turn this knob all the way to the left. I hope you muffins enjoy the device and presets. See you next week.